Hey, so I wanted to talk about some spiritual ideas that I had that were preventing me from leaving my abusive relationship with my narcissistic family in particular, but it would also apply to any abusive relationship. And some of these ideas were things that people actually said to me, and some were ideas that maybe I read in a book or saw in a video and then just twisted in my own mind. Because when we're viewing our lives through a certain viewpoint, which is that of a person who's been abused as a child, we can distort, I think, the actual meaning of these spiritual ideas to try to make it fit with like our denial, basically. So I just thought I would go through some of these things and kind of explain what I think now it really means versus what I made it mean while I was still in the abusive situation. So the first one is that we should embrace darkness and evil rather than rejecting it. And I think this principle is true within ourselves. Like the parts of ourselves that we deem as bad need our love, and we can't just push that away, and we need to sit with our pain, and we need to sit with our grief and our anger, and we need to accept that there are parts of us that maybe we don't like, and we need to embrace them rather than running away. But in the case of people abusing you in your life, you do need to exit the situation and reject them in that sense. Like, so we can embrace the evil within, which is basically all the trauma that's happened to us, but that doesn't mean we should be embracing our abusers by staying in contact with them. And the second point is kind of similar. The idea that you can transform evil with love. So again, I think that implies to negative belief within ourselves. We can transform that with our own love, but we can't transform a person outside of us with love because they have their own free will and we can't make them change. But I thought that was how I misinterpreted it. It was like, oh, if I just love them enough, then they'll stop being abusive. And another idea is that pain is your teacher in your life. And that is true, but I was saying that's why I need to stay in the relationship, which is really just like a martyr type of thing where you think that like pain is noble. But I don't think that life wants us to like stay in pain. Like the pain has already happened to you if you're in an abusive relationship. And the fact that you've woken up to the idea that it's abusive, it means that it's time to leave. So another idea is to focus on the positive and you'll get more positivity, and I'm just focusing negatively and that's why I'm being abused. But we're already focusing positively in the narcissistic relationship because we're in denial. We're already saying, oh, it's not so bad and these are all the wonderful things about them. Like, we're already positively focusing. The problem is not that we're negatively focusing. It's that we're in denial and not actually looking at the reality of the situation. And the next idea is that if you love yourself, the world around you will change and your relationship will improve. And I took that to mean if I love myself, the narcissist in my life will stop abusing me. And that's not what happened at all. The more you love yourself, the more you set up boundaries, and the more self-esteem you have, the more the narcissist will abuse you. And that eventually did drive me to go no contact, which I guess ultimately did improve my life and improve my relationships in the sense that those relationships are gone. But it didn't work the way that my ego had like thought it would. You can't make another person change because they have their own free will. So you can't love yourself and have another person treat you better. Well, not a narcissist. Maybe that would work in like normal situation, but with a narcissist, loving yourself does not improve the situation. So another one, which is something that someone actually said to me, if you loved and accepted yourself, how others treat you wouldn't affect you so much. And I strongly suspect this person was a narcissist who said this to me. So this is just an excuse to tolerate more abuse and make it your fault that you're in pain. And actually loving yourself means not allowing others to treat you badly. So this person was basically saying to me, like, it's your fault that you're in pain because you're being abused. So I hope that if someone says that to you, you can recognize that that is a red flag, that even the person saying that to you could be a narcissist. And I also had this idea that you can't just run away from your problem. You know, this is true internally. You can't run away from a problem that you're experiencing, like pain or a certain emotion or a repressed aspect of yourself. You can run and run and run, but you're never going to get away from it. But externally, yes, you can run away from a problem. Like if a bear was going to attack you, like you would leave the situation. And if someone was going to physically fight you, you would leave the situation. So you can run away from your problem externally, but then you have to address those issues internally, and you can't run away from the problem internally. So this is also something that someone said to me, and I suspect that this person was also a narcissist. They said, going no contact is not a solution. You need to resolve your problem. This was not someone in my family. This was actually kind of like an acquaintance that I had, which is another reason to just not talk to people about what's going on. But she had just asked, like, oh, what are you doing for Christmas? So I told her that I wasn't seeing my family. And that's when she said going no contact is not a solution. But what she failed to understand is that there is no way to interact with narcissists. Like, there is no way to resolve it. So the only solution actually is to leave. And it is true that if you just go no contact, but don't do any of the internal work of like understanding narcissism and healing your CPTSD, then no contact alone isn't a solution. You need no contact with like therapy and healing and developing healthy relationships in the future when you're ready to do that. So she was kind of correct that just going no contact is not a solution, but she was implying that I need to resolve my problem with my family as the only solution. But I think that she was also a narcissist and her parents were also abusive, and she was just telling me like her opinion about her own situation. And that's a very destructive idea. And unfortunately, I like got sucked into believing that for a while. And I stayed, you know, trying to work it out for like months. So please avoid that trap if you see this video. And you can, you know, just don't fall for that trap. Like, the solution is to leave. That is very much the only solution. So the next thing is that you should forgive if you hate them, have anger. That's like bad karma, and that's gonna come back to you basically. And what that does, it makes you afraid to feel your emotions, which is not good. Because in the case of abuse, the hatred and the anger is already in us. It's buried and it's already there. So we're not actually adding more hatred and anger. We're feeling the stuff that's already there, and actually releasing it. So it's counterintuitive, but by feeling the anger and the hatred, we're actually reducing the amount of anger and hatred that is like stored in our subconscious mind. So it doesn't cause negative karma to feel those negative emotions. Your feelings are just informing you of your reality, and we want to feel them. So forgiveness can happen if and when you want it to happen. Doesn't make you a bad person if you don't forgive. And forgiveness also doesn't mean that you have to talk to them. You can absolutely be no contact and forgive them and never go back to talking to them. So don't, I don't know, fool yourself into thinking that like feeling these bad emotions about them is like going to make you a bad person or something, because it's actually your anger towards them that is going to allow you to enforce your boundaries of no contact, and it's going to keep you no contact when you may be feeling like guilt or nostalgia or something about the holiday, where you're like, oh, maybe I'll just phone them or something. Like, your anger is there to keep you safe, and we need these emotions. Okay, so the next one is that you can't control the outer world, and you can only control your inner world and your own response to the situation. So I kind of took that to mean I have to just stay, which is endurism. Like, oh, I can't control what's going on outside of me, so I just have to control what's going on inside of me. But that's not how, like, a logical person would think, because you absolutely can control certain aspects. Like, you can take action and end contact with your abuser. Like, you do have control over your reality in that sense. So I was just choosing this like victim role of like, oh, I can't do anything, but you can control how you allow people to treat you. But obviously that idea of you can't control the outer world completely is true. There are things beyond your control, but how you allow other people to treat you is within your control, and it's your responsibility to not enable people to abuse you. Okay, the next one is, when you dislike something in the external reality, look within and see how that thing is really you. And what I think now, kind of looking back, is that when you dislike narcissistic abuse from the other person, the thing within you that's a match to that is how you're abusing yourself by staying. I think that's it. Like, that's the only thing you're doing wrong to like deserve it, because part of that statement is saying like, oh, maybe I am also an abuser because they are abusing me. It's like, you're not abusing them, you're abusing yourself by staying. That's the only thing that's happening. And also, if you're one of these people that like me is just like getting caught up in like all the spiritual stuff as a way to like not confront the situation, which is that you're being abused, this is just like a coping mechanism, I think. Because I did this for years. I was just like delving into all this spiritual stuff, like trying to like understand it like spiritually and like find some spiritual solution other than just actually like ending my relationship with my family. Like, I was doing everything possible to avoid that that solution, which is really the only solution. I was trying to find all of these like other spiritual things and trying to fix myself, basically, which is because the narcissist tells you you're the problem. So it's been a long road for me of like unraveling all of these spiritual things that I told myself. Another one is, don't look to the external world for happiness, because happiness is within. And again, like, all of these spiritual things are true on some level, but I think it's basically impossible to be happy while you're being narcissistically abused. Like, you can't expect yourself to be happy while people are treating you like absolute garbage. So sometimes you need to change the external world in order to even have a shot at happiness, you know? So sometimes we do need to make changes in the external world. And another one is you have to accept people the way that they are. And I took that to mean I have to stay. But no, you can accept them and say to yourself, wow, that person's a narcissist, and I'm going to leave. Accepting them does not mean that you have to stay. And another one is that like, everything has a lesson in it, and there's a reason that everything happened, and there's something for you to learn. But I took that to mean that I had to stay until I figured out the lesson. But once you realize you're being abused, I think your lesson is to find the courage and the self-love within yourself to leave. I think that's part of the lesson, is to say, wow, I'm being abused and I'm not going to tolerate this. And any other lessons that come from it could come 5 years later, 10 years later, 50 years later. You know, you don't have to stay in the abusive situation to learn the lesson. That's just, it was just another way for me to stay in denial about what I had to do, which was leave. And Teal Swan actually said you can't heal while you're in the battlefield. So it may actually be the case that you can't learn your lesson, whatever the lesson is, while you're in the narcissistic relationship. Like, you may actually have to leave in order to have the opportunity to find the healing and the lesson that is in that situation. Okay, and then the last thing is something that someone wrote to me in a YouTube comment. I had said that I felt like a fly trapped in the web of my narcissistic family, and someone commented that the web is an illusion. I didn't even respond to that. This happened like a long time ago. But I'm so pissed about that now. I don't know if this person like meant well, or if they're also a narcissist, but like, do not say that to someone who's in an abusive relationship. Oh, your attachment to this person is an illusion. It's like, no, it's not, because trauma bonds are real, and cognitive dissonance is real, and the guilt and the shame and the blame that they're using to manipulate you is real, and all the lies that you're telling yourself, the self-gaslighting, that family is love and family is important and I can't leave my family, all of those beliefs are very, very real. So yeah, there is also like learned helplessness and this sense of obligation and your fear of your family. That's all very, very real. So if you're feeling trapped, that's not an illusion. What needs to happen is you need to acknowledge that you feel trapped and then try to work through every single one of those barriers. I mean, that's what I had to do. I had to go through the guilt, the shame, the obligation, every single lie I was telling myself. I had to go through all of those things before I was finally able to leave. So the web is not an illusion, not a helpful thing to say. But I guess you could argue that all of life is an illusion, but it's not helpful to have these spiritual types of arguments when you're in an abusive relationship. Like, there's a time and a place for all these spiritual ideas, and when you're trying to leave a narcissist, is not the time to be like delving into like the spiritual understanding of everything. And that has been a major coping mechanism that I used to stay. It was like, oh, I'm just gonna figure this out spiritually. It's like, no, I was running from the pain of knowing what I had to do and just not wanting to do it because it was freaking terrifying. And I had like all of these barriers in between where I was and who I needed to be in order to leave. And that is the spiritual journey you need to take, is looking at all of the lies you're telling yourself and all of the emotions, like the guilt and the shame that people are using to manipulate you. Like, that is your spiritual journey. Not sitting here thinking about, like, all of life is an illusion, therefore my abusers are an illusion. Like, you can do that later if you want to, after you're out of the abusive situation. But if I could talk to my younger self about this, I would say, like, give up all of this spiritual stuff for now. You need to get out of the situation, and you can do all of this spiritual stuff later if you feel inclined to do that when you are in a safe situation. So I hope some of that was helpful for you. Let me know if you have any other kind of spiritual justifications that you've used, or if you can relate to anything. And thank you for watching.